I remember the first time I saw Max. At the time, I didn't know his name, didn't know where he came from or what kind of life he had known. He was just a flash of gray fur slipping behind the fence of the old house across the street. That house had been empty for some time, at least that's how it looked to most of us on the block. The lawn was patchy and overgrown in places, and the windows were drawn tight. Nobody went in, nobody came out. And yet, one morning, there he was. We live in a quiet neighborhood. People tend to mind their own business, but they also notice when things change. And this cat, well, he wasn't just passing through. He started appearing more often. At first, we thought maybe he was just one of the many semi-feral cats in the area, ones that people occasionally feed but no one really owns. But this one was different. He wasn't scrawny or raggedy like some of the strays. He looked lost, confused, like he wasn't supposed to be there. My name is Helen, and I live with my husband Carl. We've been on this street for over 20 years. We've seen a lot come and go. People, houses, pets, and yet something about that cat caught my eye from the start. He always sat a few feet away from the porch of the empty house, as if he were waiting for someone to open the door. Sometimes, he'd walk up and paw gently at it, once even meowed softly, though no one was home. At first, I thought maybe the new owners had moved in and brought a cat, but were rarely home. But days passed, then a week, then two. The cat was still there. Always there. Morning, afternoon, and even in the dark of early evening, when Carl and I would take our short walk around the block. One night, as we passed the house, I saw him curled up under the bench on the front porch, his head resting on his front paws. My heart ached a little. That wasn't how a pet should be living. I decided to do a little asking around. I spoke with Sandy, who lived 2 houses down, and she said that the family who used to live there had moved out, she thought maybe a month ago. She hadn't seen them packing boxes or anything like that, but she noticed the car was gone one day and hadn't come back since. The yard was starting to look unkempt. I think they left pretty quickly, she told me. Maybe they were renters, I don't really know. That settled it for me. That cat had been left behind. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I hoped, honestly hoped, that maybe they'd come back. Maybe they were on vacation or staying somewhere temporarily. Maybe they had meant to come back for him and couldn't find him. I tried to give the benefit of the doubt. But day after day, he stayed. He didn't roam far, just that house and the couple of feet around it. I began to feed him. At first, just little bits, some dry food in a bowl by the side of the porch. He was wary. It took him a day or two to even approach the bowl while one was nearby. But hunger is persuasive. He began to wait for me in the morning. He'd sit near the step and blink slowly when I came up. I didn't try to pet him at first. I just let him eat and then sit with him quietly for a few minutes. I'd talk to him softly, calling him, sweet boy, or handsome, the way I do with our own cats. We have 2 indoor cats, both a bit older, and they're not exactly fans of newcomers. But I didn't think that far ahead. I just wanted this little guy to feel safe. A couple of times, I saw him limping. Just a little. He must have gotten into a scrape, maybe with another animal, or caught his paw in something. He wasn't feral. That much I was sure of by now. He was used to people. He was used to a home. You could see it in the way he looked at you, searching, hoping. One morning, as I placed the bowl down, one crouched beside him and held out my hand, palm up. He sniffed it for a long moment and then, this still sticks with me, he pressed his forehead against my palm. Not hard, just a gentle lean, as if to say, I know you, trying to help. I cried when I got back to my house. Carl was supportive. We'll do what we can, he said, but you know we can't bring him in right away. The girls won't like that. He meant our cats, of course. And he was right. Bringing a strange cat into a home with existing pets isn't simple. It takes time, patience, and careful planning. But I couldn't leave Max. Yes, that's when I started calling him Max. It just felt like his name. It was a week later when the weather changed. A storm rolled in, one of those summer storms that come suddenly, dark and loud, rattling windows and flooding gutters. I ran across the street, an umbrella in one hand, a towel in the other. Max was huddled under the porch again, but this time his fur was soaked, his ears pressed flat. I couldn't leave him like that. I didn't think, I just acted. I scooped him up and brought him into our garage. I set up a little area for him with a blanket, water, and food. He didn't fight me. He was trembling, but he let me carry him. That moment was the turning point. Over the next several days, Max stayed in the garage. I took him to the vet to check for a microchip. There was one. It had a number, but the information was outdated. The number had been disconnected, and the address matched the one across the street. I left a note on the front door just in case. I posted online in local lost and found pet groups. No one claimed him. No one even responded. The truth hit hard. They had left him behind. Deliberately or not, Max had been abandoned. He stayed with us in the garage for another week while we slowly prepared our home and our other cats for the possibility of integration. Every day I sat with him. He began to purr when I came near. He began to play, just a little, with a bit of string or a crumpled piece of paper. He had been someone's cat. He had known love once. And now, somehow, he had found his way to us. Max settled into the garage as though he knew he didn't have to run anymore. There was a tiredness in him, not just physical, but something deeper. The kind of weariness you see in animals that have had to fend for themselves after being cared for, and then losing that care without understanding why. He slept more those first few days than I think I've ever seen a cat sleep. Deep, heavy sleep. Sometimes, I'd sit near his bed, and he wouldn't even stir. Just the slow, steady rise of his chest. I took it as a good sign. Maybe for the first time in weeks, he felt safe. We slowly started to prepare the inside of our house for him. Our other two cats, Millie and Oscar, are both in their senior years. Millie is 14, Oscar 12. They've known each other forever, and they're, well, particular. Not aggressive, but they like things the way they like them. And cats notice everything. Even with Max in the garage, they were already sniffing under the door. Carl and I made a plan. We'd keep Max in our guest room when we brought him in. Separate litter box, food, water. Let them sniff through the door for at least a week. Maybe more. We had no idea how long it would take, or if it would work at all. But we were committed now. Max had no other options. He was ours, whether we'd planned it or not. The move into the guest room went smoothly. Max was surprisingly calm. He inspected every inch of the room, jumped on the bed, looked out the window, and then settled in a little corner near the bookshelf. That first night inside, he slept curled on the pillow as though he'd always belonged there. And in some quiet way, it felt like he did. I tried to learn more about his past. I left 2 more notes on the door of the house across the street, one taped to the front, one tucked into the mail slot. I posted updated photos in local pet groups. Still nothing. No one looking for a gray tabby with golden eyes and a little notch in his left ear. No neighbors remembered his name or the exact date the former tenants had left. A few had vague recollections. I think they had a cat, or maybe 2, one person told me. That was the closest I got to confirmation. Max, meanwhile, began to emerge from whatever shell he had been hiding in. It was slow at first, just little changes. He'd start greeting me at the door when I came in. He'd meow when I brought his meals. His voice was soft, not scratchy like a stray, but refined, almost polite. He would sit beside me and press his side against my leg, just enough to let me know he was there. Not needy, just present. Carl, who hadn't been sure in the beginning, was the one who first got him to play. One evening, I came in and found the 2 of them sitting on the floor, Carl dragging a ribbon slowly across the carpet while Max pounced clumsily after it, his back legs kicking up like a kitten's. "He's got some spirit left in him," Carl said. More than I thought. The real challenge came when we started the introductions. Millie and Oscar are both slow to warm up to anything new. We started with scent swapping, rubbing towels on each cat and placing them in the other's spaces. There was a lot of staring. Some hissing. Max, interestingly, never hissed. He just stood or sat quietly, watching the others like he was trying to figure out if he was welcome. The first face-to-face meeting was brief. Max stayed close to me, tail low, while Oscar stood like a statue a few feet away. Millie, on the other hand, puffed up and backed out of the room like she'd seen a ghost. It wasn't surprising. She's always been the more sensitive of the 2. We didn't rush it. A few minutes here and there each day, always supervised, and then back to separate spaces. Weeks passed. There were setbacks. One night, Max and Oscar had a spat, nothing serious, just a lot of noise and a fast dash under the table. But I was on edge for the rest of the night. I questioned whether we were doing the right thing, whether we were putting too much strain on our older cats. But then I'd look at Max, curled up in the sunbeam near the window, eyes closed, breathing easy. He didn't belong on a porch in the rain. He belonged here. Over time, a delicate balance formed. Not quite friendship, but a truce. Oscar would walk past Max without a second glance. Millie still hissed occasionally but no longer fled the room. Max, for his part, kept his distance but never seemed afraid. He was respectful of their space in a way that felt almost deliberate, like he understood he was the newcomer. About a month after Max came inside, I noticed something that stopped me cold. He was lying on the couch, head down, breathing softly, and I saw that he was dreaming. Not twitching the way cats sometimes do, but a deep, relaxed dream. His body was completely at peace. And that's when I realized, this cat had begun to trust again. After being abandoned, after waiting for someone who never came, he had made his choice. He'd decided we were home. We took him to the vet for a full checkup. The vet guessed he was around 6 years old, young still, but not a kitten. His teeth were in good shape, his weight healthy. He's lucky, the vet said. If he'd been out there much longer, things could have gone very differently. She noted that he'd had a neuter surgery, probably years ago, and had clearly been someone's pet. We updated his microchip with our information. A small gesture, but one that made it official. He was ours now. By the time autumn arrived, Max had fully integrated into our home. He wasn't a guest anymore. He wasn't the cat from across the street, or the one we found on the porch. He was Max, our Max, and he had claimed his place quietly but firmly. Not by force or demand, but with patience, presence, and the kind of quiet resilience that only animals seem to understand. He had become a part of the rhythm of our life. Every morning, while I made coffee, Max would wind between my ankles, brushing against my legs just enough to say hello. He wasn't overly affectionate, not in the same way Millie was, with her loud purrs and need to be in every lap, but Max had his own ways. He'd sit nearby, just close enough to be noticed, watching us with those golden eyes, always observant. He was the calm in the room. Carl had become just as attached as I had, though he would never admit it in those words. But I'd catch him slipping little treats under the table or letting Max sit on his lap while he read the paper. Once, I came home and found Carl and Max both asleep on the recliner, Max curled up tightly on Carl's chest, their breathing completely in sync. Carl later grumbled something about the cat stealing my spot, but didn't move Max until he woke up on his own. There were still moments that reminded us of what Max had been through. He didn't like loud noises. Sudden movement made him bolt, sometimes without warning. He never tried to go near the front door. Not once. We could have left it wide open and I don't think he would have taken a step outside. Maybe he remembered waiting there, remembered that no one ever came back. It was hard not to think that way. Max had also become a kind of quiet guardian of the house. He would sit in the hallway outside our bedroom at night, not quite in the room, not quite out, as if he were keeping watch. He liked to be close, but never underfoot. Always respectful of space. I think part of that came from how he lived those weeks on his own, learning to stay near, but out of reach, just in case. As the months passed, his relationship with Millie and Oscar mellowed even more. There were days I'd find all three of them napping in the same sunlit patch of carpet. Not touching, but close enough. That said more than anything. They accepted him. He belonged. The house across the street stayed empty for a long time after the tenants left. Months, in fact. I often found myself glancing at it through the kitchen window while doing the dishes. Sometimes I'd catch a strange wave of emotion, anger, confusion, even guilt. Not toward Max, of course, but toward the people who had left him. I didn't know the full story. I never would. But it stayed with me, the idea of leaving behind an animal who waited on the porch day after day for someone who never came. I didn't dwell on it. I couldn't. Max was here now, and we were focused on moving forward. The first winter with him was when we really saw his personality bloom. He discovered the heating vents. Our old house has floor vents that blow warm air during the colder months, and he began curling up on them like they were luxury spa beds. He'd stretch out fully, legs extended, tail twitching lazily. We joked that he'd found the most expensive seat in the house. And he'd talk. That was new. Max had always been a quiet cat, but as he grew more comfortable, he began to vocalize more. Soft little trills, quiet meows, even chirps when he was excited. He'd greet me when I walked in the door. He'd chatter at the birds outside the window. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't constant. It was just enough to say, I'm here. I'm happy. I'm part of this. Looking back, the thing that struck me most was how unremarkable, in some ways, his integration had been. There was no dramatic moment where we saved him, no grand gesture of rescue. It was small things: food, time, patience, a blanket in the garage, a safe room, a quiet hello, and somehow, that became everything. There's a photo I took, sometime in late winter, I think, that now sits on our fridge. Max is lying on the back of the couch, one paw tucked under, his eyes half closed. The sun is hitting just the edge of his face. In that photo, he looks completely at peace. I keep it there as a reminder of what animals endure silently, and how much a simple act of kindness can mean. Especially when no one else is looking. It's been over 2 years now since we brought Max in. We still don't know his exact age or much about his early life. But we know this: he was loved once, and then he was left. And he found his way back to love. Sometimes when I look at him sleeping near the window or rubbing against Carl's leg while he works in the garden, I think about how easily we could have missed him. How easily he could have been overlooked, how simple it would have been to assume he was just another stray. But we didn't. We saw him. And once we did, we couldn't look away. We didn't set out to take in another cat. We weren't looking. But Max found us, in his own way. He waited. He endured. And when the time came, he trusted again. That's what makes him so special. Not just that he survived, but that he let us in.